Howdy everyone. So I'm back out in the shop getting some work done on this cowling. I had taken a couple of weeks off to do some work out at the hangar, and I've got some video of that work. However, I've decided to have those videos only for my members. I know a lot of people is going to probably be upset with that, but it's just something I chose to do. It's kind of a behind the scenes type of thing. And so if you're a member or want to be a member, sign up and you'll be able to watch those videos as well. So anywho, back to the cowling. This is a first, I believe. This is the first time that I've gotten the bottom cowling on without the top cowling. Usually the way that I've been doing it while I've been out here is that I put the top cowling on first, and then I put the bottom cowling on after that. And this is the first time, I believe, that I've put the bottom cowling on only. So no big deal. Again, at this point, it's just Clecos for the most part. So where I have left off before, I believe, was I had everything fitted, Clecoed, and I was going to come back and clean up around all the seams. If the seams were too tight, I was going to sand those back, because like I said in a previous video, I'm interested in having a slightly bigger gap all the way around on everything, just so I've got room for my my vinyl to fit. So I had the top and cowling taken off, and I sanded both of those where I needed to. And I'm just now in the process of putting it back together. And I thought, what the heck, let's see if I can get the bottom cowling on first. And then let's see if I can get the top cowling on to match instead of doing it the other way around. So right now the plan is to put the cowling back together. I'll check my seams all the way around. And if I need to, I'll make note again of what needs to be opened up a little bit. Oh, but I think at this point I'm going to start focusing on the oil access door thing on the top cowling. I think that will be my next major endeavor. So that's it for now. Yeah, I think that's it for now. I think I'll move on to that cowling door, the oil door. So talk to you guys later. Howdy everyone. Something else that I just realized, I had meant to talk about this very, very early on in the cowling process and had completely forgotten about it. Now that I've got the bottom cowling on without the top, I can show you very easily what I'm talking about. Make note of where your alternator pulley is in regard to the bottom cowling. Now I'm sure it's hard to tell on camera, but I've got the alternator rotated all the way up to the end of this slot. So this mounting bracket here down at this end is slotted so that the alternator can pivot and rotate for the tension of the belt. So I've got the alternator rotated all the way up as far as it will go, and I've got the bolt snug just to hold it in place. With that configuration, I can't quite get a finger underneath the front of the pulley, between the front of the pulley and the bottom cowling. I can't quite get my finger in there. The back, I can get my finger underneath like the V-groove. So like the V-groove area and back, I can get my finger under, but I can't quite get a full finger on the very front, right where the cowling comes up really sharp. So if your alternator is down, that's going to make fitting the bottom cowling difficult. And I ran into that initially. I was initially fitting the bottom, and it just didn't feel right. It felt like it was pivoting on something. It just wasn't going in place. And then I realized that the alternator was in the way. So I rotated that up out of the way. But even with it all the way up, there's not a whole lot of clearance. I'm guessing, just feeling underneath here, I'm guessing there might be about a ½ inch of clearance between the pulley and the cowling. So I'm going to buy a belt appropriate to basically keep it where it is. because I believe people have had issues with the pulley riding on the cowling and basically cutting a hole over time into the lower cowling. So just something to keep in mind when you're doing your initial fit. And then when you go to get a belt, make sure you get a belt length that will allow that pulley to be up and out of the way of the cowling. All right, talk to you guys later. Howdy everyone. So the cowling is back on again, just temporary. And I am going to go ahead and start working on this oil door access on the top cowling here. You can see that I've gotten started, and here's my initial plan. This is kind of recessed, so if you feel around, you can feel where the cowling comes across and then it kind of dips down into the oil door, right? So of course I want to leave everything a little bit big, the door itself a little bit bigger than this area here, because keep in mind the door is going to be flush with the rest of the cowling, so you want the door to fit inside of this recessed area. You also need a flange in this area all the way around for the door to sit on. So basically all I'm doing now is I had kind of felt around just by hand and made a mark where I think the transition from high to low takes place, and I put a mark at each corner. So I've got a mark here for this low spot, I've got a mark here again for this low spot, then a mark here and a mark here for these low spots. So I just marked out the corners where I think this transition takes place. At that point, using a ruler, I connected each individual mark and then drew lines to extend that mark out as you see here. So again, I just put a ruler on this mark and then draw a line to connect them, and then extend the line past the outside edge of this. From that point, I took the oil door. This is a Vans oil door. This came with the kit. First thing I did was lay it roughly into position and figure out which way the door needs to be oriented. This particular door seemed to fit better this way than it does this way. All right. So that's why you see the arrow. So I want this to be oriented with the arrow up. That seemed to fit the best. I'm going to switch hands here. At this point, I basically just kind of started letting it take its own set, right? And you can feel when you've got the curve of the door kind of matching the curve of the cowling. You can kind of feel when it's not right and when it kind of wants to nestle in a little bit. And then I just check this curve here and this curve on this side. Again, you don't want to be pushing on the door because this is very thin, right? You can get this to contour to the cowling very easily if you push on it. So just kind of let it float around and find its own natural set. It kind of sits like right in there. And again, I was checking around the perimeter to see if there were any major gaps without pushing on it. And it fits on there really well. So at this point, I went ahead and transferred these lines that I had drawn on the cowling. I just transferred those lines up onto the door. So there's a tick mark here, there's one here, there's one there. Each corner gets 2 tick marks. So that now shows me where the door needs to sit in relation to these marks. And like I said, the door seems to take a natural set. Kind of in there. And you can see maybe that the door itself is not square or parallel to the cowling. I don't know if that's going to show very easily on camera. But instead of the door sitting like this, it's actually kind of sitting this way. But the contour is really nice. So now that I've got those marks at each corner, you can see these two here, potentially here and here. Like I did on the cowling, I'll just use a ruler and I'll connect these individual marks, and that will give me the initial cut to get this cut down closer to the dimension that I need for in here. Now it's going to be a little big because, like I said, this needs to be cut with a flange. So there's got to be an internal flange here for the door to sit into. And then I'll have to trim the door back so that it sits inside of this cutout and it will lay relatively flat to this outside perimeter. So I'm going to go ahead and mark up the door, and then I'm going to cut it and then come back and just see how it lays on top of here. All right. Talk to you guys later.